The thing in the vents. I moved into my new apartment last week. It was small, cheap, and exactly what I needed. The landlord warned me about the old ventilation system, saying it sometimes made odd noises. I didn't think much of it. Every old place has its quirks. The first night I heard scratching coming from the vents. Probably rats, I figured. Annoying, but manageable. By the second night, the noises grew louder, almost like something was crawling through the ducts. I told myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, something about it felt wrong. Then I heard the whispering. At first, I thought it was my upstairs neighbors talking, but as I lay in bed, straining to listen, I realized it was coming from the vent above me. A soft, hushed voice. "Daniel, Daniel." I froze. My mind raced for a rational explanation. Maybe it was the wind, maybe it was the pipes. But it wasn't. It was a voice, and it knew my name. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I asked the landlord about the last tenant. He hesitated before answering. "The guy before you left in a hurry. He didn't even take his things, just disappeared." That evening, I found scratches on the metal grates of the vents. Long, deep gouges, as if something with sharp fingers had been trying to pry them open. I forced myself to look inside, shining my phone's flashlight into the darkness. Dust. Rust. Nothing else. At least, that's what I told myself. The whispering continued. Every night it grew clearer, closer. The voice no longer sounded distant. It was in the vent above my bed. On the fourth night, I covered the vents with blankets and pushed my dresser against the one in my bedroom. I told myself that would be enough. I was wrong. At 3 a.m., I woke to a soft creak. The metal grate on the ceiling vent was shifting. Slowly, carefully, it slid open. Then I saw them. Two pale, milky white eyes, wide and unblinking. The face behind them was thin, skeletal, with stretched grayish skin. Its mouth was too large, curling into a grin that stretched beyond the limits of its face. It watched me, unblinking. Then it moved. Long fingers, impossibly thin, gripped the edges of the vent as it began pulling itself forward. Its shoulders twisted unnaturally, bones cracking as it forced its way through the opening. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just stared as it crawled out, its limbs bending in ways that no humans ever should. Then it spoke. Finally. The voice was dry, raspy, but unmistakably the one that had whispered my name for nights on end. I bolted. My body finally obeyed me, and I ran for the door. But the second my hand touched the doorknob, a sharp screech filled the room. I turned, just for a second, and saw the thing retreating, vanishing back into the vents. The next morning, I packed my things and left. I didn't care about breaking my lease. I didn't care about my security deposit. I just needed to get out. I don't know what it was. I don't want to know. But sometimes, late at night, no matter where I go, I still hear the whispering, and it still knows my name. The reflection. I've never believed in ghosts, or curses, or any of the things people whisper about when the lights go out. But after what happened last night, I don't know what to believe anymore. I moved into a new apartment a week ago. It's small, cheap, and a little rundown, but it's home. The only thing I found strange was the old, full-length mirror bolted to the wall in the bedroom. It was tall and wide, the glass slightly warped, giving reflections a stretched, unnatural look. I tried to take it down, but the screws wouldn't budge. They were rusted, as if the mirror had been there for decades. I thought about covering it, but something about it felt important, like it was meant to stay exactly where it was. The first night, I noticed something odd. When I walked past the mirror, my reflection lagged, just a fraction of a second behind me. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it sent a chill through me. I told myself it was just a trick of the light, maybe my tired eyes playing games. Then last night I woke up to a sound, a soft scraping noise. I turned on the lamp, heart pounding. The room was empty, silent, but then my eyes landed on the mirror. My reflection was standing up. I was still in bed, frozen in fear, but my reflection was staring at me. And then, slowly, it smiled. My breath caught in my throat. The thing in the mirror raised a hand. My hand. But the motion was slow, deliberate, like it was testing something. Its fingers curled, pressing against the glass. A deep hairline crack splintered across the surface. A cold dread washed over me. I bolted out of bed, grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a chair, and slammed it into the mirror. The glass shattered, pieces scattering across the floor. My breath came in ragged gasps as I looked down at the shards, expecting to see my own reflection broken apart. But the pieces held something else. In each shard, the reflection was still whole, still standing, and all of them were smiling. Then I heard it, a whisper. "You let me out." The air turned ice cold. The lamp flickered. A shadow moved, not in the mirror, but behind me. I ran. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I just ran. I checked into a motel across town, too afraid to go back. This morning I called my landlord, making up some excuse about a family emergency. I asked him about the mirror, if I could get rid of it. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, in a quiet, hesitant voice, he said, "That mirror, it's been there a long time. Last tenant tried to take it down too. Left in a hurry, just like you." I hung up. I don't know what I unleashed. I don't know if it's still in that apartment. But I do know one thing. I will never, ever look into a mirror again. The figure in the fog. I don't go outside at night anymore. Not since that night in October. Not since I saw it. I was walking home from a friend's house, cutting through the woods like I always did. The shortcut saved me at least 15 minutes, and I had taken it dozens of times. But that night was different. A thick fog rolled in, swallowing the trees and muffling every sound. Even my footsteps seemed too quiet, like the earth was swallowing them whole. I tried to shake the unease creeping up my spine, but then I saw it, just ahead, standing motionless in the fog. A figure. It was tall, too tall, its limbs thin and stretched like something not meant to be human. The fog curled around it, hiding its face. I stopped, heart pounding. "Hello?" My voice barely carried in the damp air. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe. I took a step back. My foot snapped a twig and the sound was deafening. The figure twitched. Its head jerked in my direction, but I still couldn't see its face. The fog was too thick. I turned and ran. The path blurred beneath my feet. My lungs burned, my heart hammered against my ribs. I didn't dare look back, but I heard it. The crunch of leaves, the rustle of branches. Something was following me. I burst from the trees into my backyard, lungs heaving. The porch light cast a warm glow, and I stumbled up the steps, yanking the door open and slamming it behind me. Silence. I pressed my back against the wood, panting. My house was quiet. Too quiet. I flipped the lock with shaking fingers and forced myself to breathe. Just my imagination. That's what I told myself. Just a trick of the fog. Then the porch light flickered. I glanced at the window. My stomach dropped. The figure was there, standing just beyond the pool of light, its body still, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It had followed me home. I backed away, heart pounding. I wanted to scream, but my throat was too tight. Then, slowly, the figure stepped forward. The porch light flickered again, casting its shadow against the glass. And finally, I saw its face, or rather, the lack of one. Its skin was smooth and featureless, stretched like old parchment over bone. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just an empty expanse of pale skin. It raised one long, skeletal hand. Knock, knock. The sound sent ice through my veins. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Knock, knock. It wasn't impatient. It wasn't angry. It was just waiting. I don't know how long I stood there, paralyzed. Hours, minutes. But when I finally dared to look again, the figure was gone. The next morning, I found handprints on the glass. I don't go outside at night anymore.